So now all the door jambs are done. They can sit as is until, you know, we're ready to spray. I need to get onto this job here that I've been putting off for a little bit, and it is the super rusty lower part here, the rear right side. There's a nice big whopping rust hole in it, so that has to be sorted out. I'm going to start by again using the strip disc to bring all the paint off this side, just to see how far up I have to cut to see where the rust goes to. And once it's clean steel, we'll cut at that line, we'll go all the way around and try and clean this up, and then sort out some kind of patch. So let's get started. So as you can see, some nugget has decided to just bog this whole rear end to try and fix it. So I sanded right up to this seam, and it's going to give us a nice new foundation to work from. We're just going to try and fix up their lazy ass job, really. Let's clean this up and see where we got to cut at. All right, so it seems like we're going to be chopping right from up here. And then all the way down there, I reckon, to get that out. I might actually just do a straight cut all the way across. It's probably going to be smarter. And then I've got to clean up the joining surface on the other bit of steel. I hope you can see this, but this I think might be factory seam sealer, and as I'm pulling it off, that steel in there is really good. So I'm happy that this panel is in good condition still. This here is going to have to get cut off and replaced, just that segment from there to there. The rest of that might actually survive, which is good. A little bit of pitting up in the wheel well here. So what I'm going to do with this part, I'm going to rust convert and seal this side, but I'm actually going to do the repair from the inside when I get around to doing these rear guards and, you know, this fender. For now, I just want to concentrate on this rear quarter. So the steel on the inside piece of metal is actually really good, which is wonderful for me because that would have sucked if I had to replace any of that. So with the template roughly cut out, and I mean roughly, you know, I'm getting the shape. A little bit of a gap there, which I'll sort out when I actually cut the final one. But that sits up in there nicely. I've got this lip, which will weld onto the inside. So we have a piece of cold rolled 1mm steel that's been shaped to the first half of this patch I'm going to do, and that's going to sit right up in there like so. I can't really hold it that flush right now because I only have one hand, I'm holding the camera. But that's going to fit pretty well. We're going to tack weld it where it needs to be, and then as we're tack welding, we're going to massage the rest of it into place. Alright, so that's now being tacked up. A little bit finicky, but nothing I couldn't really manage. Now it's just a matter of making it neat and tidy, and while I'm tacking it, this one actually warped the bottom piece of steel, so I got to make sure that, you know, I get that right, or that's going to be disastrous. And then I'm going to have to weld this onto the rear piece. What I'm thinking of actually doing is drilling through the backside and welding from the back onto it. I'm putting a few holes in there. One thing I did forget to do is actually make that patch piece in the rear, which I'm probably just going to do from underneath, from the backside. Anyways, this is looking good. Alright, good news is that's welded up. Bad news is, it's not the most perfect job in the world, but I'm not really too fussed. Knowing that there's no rust in there now is the main thing. This is just going to require a little bit of panel beating back to get its, you know, proper shape back, so I don't have to use 10 gallons of bog. A little bit of warpage around this side of the weld here, and a little bit there. But before we start shaping that, I need to start making this bit. Alright, second little patch. Should fit in there. Nice and snug. We'll tack this in, continue. Alright, that bit there's tacked in now. We're getting closer. We'll work this bit out now. This is like a very complicated puzzle. Alright, so for me and my skill level, that's about what's going to happen. And that's going to sit right in there like so. So we now need to tack this one up. Alright, what a job. Not bad for my first attempt. Well, I mean, it's pretty messy, but like I said before, no more rust. So that's sweet. But pretty much this is done, apart from just doing some panel beating and making these nice and round. There were some dings here from, I don't know, some time in its life that I have to remove. And I just have to make this really nice and smooth so that it looks decent when there's paint on it. And we are back for whatever the part was I said in the last video we're going to be back for. Which is a little bit of bodywork, a bit of primer filler, just to get this panel nice and straight again. So I've found a few high spots which I managed to panel beat out through this panel, and it's come up really nice and flat, which I'm really happy with. And down here where that repair was done, it's come up pretty good as well. Like, it's not a perfect job. I'm not a professional panel beater or bodywork or anything like that, but I'm pretty happy with how that is. The next step is now, put some more light on this. The next step is now, I'm actually going to put on some primer surfacer filler, I think is what it is. Instead of spraying it though, we're going to apply it with a roller. I don't want to use an air compressor and spray gun as much in this garage because it's just a lot of effort, and you know, you just don't have to all the time. Rolling it on is a absolutely fine way of applying the primer filler. This has been sanded back with 240 grit sandpaper, so it's got enough bite to hold the primer surfacer on. And from there, we'll let it dry. I've already actually done it up here. There was a few little spots up here that I've actually applied. So I rolled this on. It looked more like that square patch there. And you sand nearly, 90% of it off, because all you're trying to do is fill those low spots and find the highs. So I've already done it a few times. On the roof and along this panel here that I was, repairing. It's a really good way if you are sanding back to metal and you end up with that edge of paint versus metal. You can feather that down as good as you can with sandpaper, and then use this roll-on primer filler or spray it on, up to you. To sort out all those kind of little imperfections. So let's get on to rolling this on and try and make some progress. One thing I'm not doing is this wheel guard. It's a bit rough and it's a bit dodgy. It's a lot of work that I'm going to have to do to this guard to get it looking good. And the reason I'm not doing it is I'm going to be putting flared guards on it anyway. There's no need to do the work on this panel now until I actually get the flared guards. And then when I fit the flared guards, all this will be taken care of at that stage. So that's why I'm just leaving it the way it is. Alright, so this is just a basic primer filler. Picked it up from Super Cheap Auto, and it's only like, $30 odd for 2 litres, which is going to be enough to do the majority of my car work. So what we pretty much do is I'm using these rollers I picked up from Bunnings Warehouse. They come with an assortment of different microfiber rollers. If you do use the sponge ones, sometimes the sponge ones soak up with the paint and they end up misforming and it's just a mess of a job, where these can be cleaned and reused, like this one here. Might go 200ml into this roller container, which is the right size for the mini rollers. I'm not adding anything to this, it's just straight out of the tin. I'm not adding any thinners or anything like that. It's going to make this product go further for me, doing it this way. Obviously, if you're spraying it, you'd have to thin it out a little bit for the spray gun. The thing is though, when you spray it, you lose a lot of it into the air. Where this, you're using 100% of the product on your job. You may need to sand a little bit more, but for the sake of this job, it's exactly what I'm trying to do. I want to build up that surface to hide any imperfections. So I've wiped down the surface really well. I also got my heat gun and dried it just to make sure that all the moisture's out of it, because I do use wet sanding a lot. I don't like having dust everywhere, so less mess the better. So we've got a little bit of paint on here. We're simply just going to roll it on, just like a wall of a house. Alright, so that's flushed off. I can literally rub my hand on it, so I'm definitely ready for another coat. And there we have it. That is how it's going to sit until the whole car looks like this. I'm not going to sand it. I'm going to give it much time to dry up and kind of shrink as much as it can. The last thing you want to do is go straight ahead and sand this, and then for the product to sink into any of the sand scratches you had previously, because the scratches will just show again. So this is going to really sit there for a while. I put 3 good layers on this bottom section just because I had a few pinholes from the filler, but that's going to come up really good. Some places I did, you know, only 1.5 coats or whatever, just because the bodywork was absolutely fine, and I really just put it on just for the sake of, you know, leveling stuff out. That's pretty much it for this quarter. I'm happy that this is all fixed now. I think it looks absolutely awesome compared to the massive giant rust hole that was in it. From the inside, I just have to clean it up and hit it with some, I got to clean all this up in here and hit it with some seam sealer, just because the factory seam sealer got all pulled off when I was doing it, so that'll have to get reapplied. This was just a really quick kind of recap on this lower quarter here that I repaired. Not a major video, but you know, this process I think is really good way of doing it, where you don't have to use a spray gun, and it's much cleaner, it's much easier. Apart from doing a little bit more sanding, you're going to get a much nicer job, and you're going to use all of the product you have instead of spraying it into the air. So hopefully next time I see you, the rest of the car is done. I have to do all the panels now. That should be fun. Oh well, till the next one.